Plutara's Day. The guardian of the aged and the elderly. The preserving goddess. She who watches over lost things. Tom Steinberg grunted as he stirred the batter. So, Pezrin really can't taste sweet things? Wow, Gore really had just been polite. Huh. He donned a mitt and reached into the oven, pulling out the secret ingredient he'd pre-prepared. So I guess no chocolates on Valentine's Day, huh? He scraped half the stuff off the tray before stirring it into the batter.
No, Patviri confirmed. Not that I know what chocolates are, or this day you speak of.
Okay, fair enough. Tom kept stirring, sprinkling in a little vanilla extract to bring out the flavour. It's our holiday that celebrates love and courtship and stuff. Try as he might, Tom somehow always spent Valentine's Day single. And now there wasn't any more Valentine's Day. Go figure. Valentine sort of became a minor deity of love in my world.
Love? An involuntary emotional response. A hiccup of emotion compared with envy or hatred. Patviri murmured in amusement. Look how much effort you put into that Gelf woman.
Tom watched her tail flicker in amusement. Someday the girl would get bitten hard, though with a Pezrin that might just be literal. Hey, I went after her because she insulted my wife and kids. I can have both at once, you know.
So this Valentine.
Valentine. He was a Catholic bishop. Got his head sliced off with an axe for marrying lovers against his emperor's decree. Tom made a quick slashing gesture across his throat. Ouch.
So your minor deity encompasses sex and violence?
Patviri's tail flickered once.
This is my surprised face. Oh, how surprised I am.
It's not like that. All right, it's a little like that, Tom grumbled. He watched Patviri sniffing at the secret ingredient with real interest, and she reached for the plate. Don't touch that.
And the axe is a traditional courtship weapon for humans?
She folded her hands as if nothing had happened. No, it's not like you see one at a wedding. It's just skip it and stick with chocolate. Tom checked the baking pans were greased. It's a sweet confection, though this is going to have a little extra kick. Love is the hunter and hunted. Men and women. Just think of it like your courtship gift of food, only no one dies.
So your minor deity of sex, love and food violence, perhaps your species met Pezrin?
Yeah, well, rock and roll was before Valentine's time, Tom said thoughtfully, picking up the platter and pouring it over the batter.
What kind of god creates such perverse torture?
Patviri's voice betrayed a hint of amusement, though it turned firm.
You should never give away your heart. The axe is a good idea, though.
Seriously, forget the axe, Tom snorted, mixing vigorously. Besides, minor deity. Not my saint either, but the guy's commitment was not in question. None of that sweetest day bullshit.
Better to ask. If there is a human deity, must they be sane? Most of the galaxy would like to know.
Only most?
It's a vast galaxy, full of species that haven't met humans yet.
Yeah, very funny, Tom snorted dismissively. After all, who was the hakakt around here? I think we're getting off track. It's about gifts, and I want these ready for the wedding.
But the ideas are the same. Gifts are important in Pezrin relationships.
Patviri regarded the pungent batter with a blink.
Especially courtships. And the first gift is always food. Sinshiki provided that. Now I must provide the gift of wealth. Then Raikishi and Kalis can provide the gifts of mind and spirit.
What about the honeymoon? You know, snoo-snoo and all that. Tom stopped short of a suggestive gesture. Thankfully, she seemed to get the hint.
The gift of body lasts the first month after the marriage, Patviri shrugged. After all, he'll have 4 of us.
4 girls for every boy? Yeah, I heard what the Beach Boys did to Surf City. Anyway, sounds about right. Tom shrugged as her psyche twitched in the question. He was starting to get the tail talk thing down. He shifted through the mail on his Omnipad. He wasn't going to pretend to know the ins and outs of Pezrin dating. His own experience with it had left him confused. Apparently it involved murder. At least the Stone Mountain's wedding had. And cannibalism. Anyway, brownies aren't a conventional wedding gift, but it's what I can do for another human. Bigwig professor called Tom Warwick who invited me to talk in his class. Know of him?
He is Zinshiki's Hakakt.
Patvira's copper eyes were following what he was doing, and she arched an eyebrow. It seemed she could read his habits about as well as he could Pezrin, though she cocked her head the wrong way.
He gained notoriety by beheading a Shalvanti admiral.
Okay. So how did he and your sister...
He stabbed her, with a kitchen utensil, I think.
I think I'm gonna like this guy. Tom poured the batter into the tray, stirring it around one last time. Wanna lick the spoon?
You said I should not taste it when you started, and I just told you.
It's laced with drugs, Tom sing-songed, waving the spoon like a magic wand. His pot brownies had been legendary in college. A dash of nutmeg did wonders, and our alien species opened up a whole galaxy of possibilities. Oh, shit. Oh. Tom realized something and looked around. Hey, Avi?
Yeah?
Avi's voice drifted from the other room. As the baby inside her grew, Tom had taken over most of the cooking. The sight of food made her nauseous. Luckily, he was pretty good at it. Where do we put my wedding and funeral suit? Is it still in the closet?
I think so.
Avi herked. Oh, deep children, I can smell it. I haven't even put it in the oven yet. There's nothing to smell. Tom slid the offending tray of batter into the oven. Shit. Patviri, do those gift rules have any stipulations about narcotics?
The gift of flesh should not be life-threatening, at least to the recipient, Patviri answered, looking through the little window in the oven door. It shouldn't be too bad, Tom mused. I mean, I brought some pot brownies to my cousin's wedding. We had this huge tailgate in the synagogue parking lot. Everyone brought booze and weed. Smoking up with the rabbi was a fun experience, and it was kosher too. Tom had had to look that one up. Speaking of looking up, Tom looked around and spotted two ravenous sharks circling like, well, sharks. Dex and Airy must have heard brownies and came running. Tom grabbed them with one lunge, picking them up as their feet kept kicking in the air. Kids, careful. These ones have drugs in them. I'll make another batch later that you can eat. So, okay, you have the gift of wealth. I still say you should hock those things and get something else, you know? Simply purchasing them would be inappropriate, Patviri said,
as if she'd just bitten something sour.
It should be things we provide personally. Don't tell me humans just wave your bank statements at one another.
I never ran in that kind of crowd. It was hard enough getting straight answers out of a Pezrin. Any Pezrin. So Tom crossed his arms and kept the conversation on track. He was on a roll. Okay, so arts and crafts sort of thing. You four all need to talk to each other about what you're going to get this guy?
Ideally, though that means I must commune with my younger sisters.
Patviri heaved a sigh that was pure post-teenager. Seems like a good idea to me. If two's company and three's a crowd, then four has to be a Tom paused as her Omnipad screamed. It wasn't loud, but as far as her personal ringtones went, it sounded like a cross between a screaming goat and bagpipes.
Now see what you've done?
Patviri scowled at her Omnipad.
That's my sister calling.
Patviri swiped open her Omnipad. It was Zinshiki calling, and she braced herself for a conversation with her next youngest sister. It wasn't as if she disdained her band sisters, but sharing one small room with three of them? Sunchaser always said that she and Zenshiki were too like their father for their own good. Personally, she couldn't see it. Zenshiki was the daughter of Marraket. Her mother was Harasov. They were nothing alike. And who could blame her for wanting space from 3 siblings? At least Rikishi and Kalis had been kits most of the time. There were full 2 years between her and her youngest sister. The whole idea was preposterous.
Zenshiki? Patviri.
Her sister's voice came back over the connection, as Tom watched. The expression on his face appeared to mean innocence on the human. It failed.
You called. Your skills as a scout remain undiminished.
Patviri strangled a sigh of exasperation, and vowed to save it for actual strangling later.
I'm busy. What is it?
She turned away from Tom as she shook his head in the negative, and ignored the grin. Humans bared their fangs at some very inappropriate times.
It is not yet 10 a.m. What has you occupied at this hour?
What to say to that? Hiding from the authorities? Moving stolen goods? Money laundering?
Baked goods,
she said firmly.
Look, why are you calling? Our courtship,
her sister replied.
I produced the Marauder some time ago. If you do not provide the gift of wealth soon, past may think our suit is frivolous.
Even though Zenshiki was right, it was tempting to fob her off.
It's not as if a single young Persian guy has a lot of choice on Shell.
She remembered where he worked and amended that to,
at least if he wants to keep it in our species. He does,
her sister said, using that tone she sometimes got. Challenging her sister on the idea seemed unwise. It wasn't as if she craved virginity or a death jewel.
Would you rather Sunchaser arrange a husband for us? I got the gift of wealth the other night. Obtaining it nearly cost me my life,
Patviri sighed. Dark Mother, her sister, could be exasperating, but when she was right, she was right. At least as a redeeming quality, Zenshiki didn't ask. Rikishi would ask, not to challenge her truth, but the Pathfinder in training would ask just to record the story. Completely irrepressible, Kalis would ask simply to ask.
We just need Rikishi and Kalis to get their gifts before Sunchaser gets any ideas. That will mean getting Rikishi out in actual daylight, and Kalis off the shooting simulator. Yes.
Zenshiki was in one of her moods, and the single word had all the feeling of a slab of cold lead.
Do you have any ideas? You're a lot closer to Rikishi than I am,
Patviri said defensively. Unlikely as the pair were, it was still the truth.
That is not a no. Fine.
Patviri rolled her eyes and tried to ignore her watching her hut. Tom seemed ready to take notes, so she rose and wandered into the other room while he dealt with his children. Apparently, brownies were very popular, though whatever herb had been on the plate had smelled far more interesting.
As it happens, my Hahakt and I have been invited to your Hahakt's wedding ceremony. I'm told there should be weaponry. Axes. My Hahakt has mentioned wearing his sword. He dislikes the dagger that comes with his warden's uniform. I approve of larger blades.
Whole sentences. From Zenshiki, that was practically a manifesto.
Axes would be good if they are taken in battle. Past will be attending as well.
That sounded like a ray of hope. If they could just get Rikishi and Kalis to the wedding, then perform an act of valor, this whole business could be settled, instead of getting their much-loved, utterly meddlesome Pathfinder involved.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? I think so, but culottes have a tendency to rise up.
Patviri couldn't contain the sigh this time. Her younger sister had a thing for clothes she could hide knives in.
Fine. Right. Is there anything else? I require your presence tonight. What? Just like that? Pet Veery, there's something going on and I need you. What's the magic word? Now, her sister said flatly.
Pat Veery winced. This? Growing up with this, and not just a bit, but all the time? How could people not understand her desire to get some distance now and then? She rubbed her forehead, able to feel the stress all the way down her sack.
Fine.
Sisters? Well, at least the wedding gift might get settled.
When is it, and where is it, and what is it you're getting me into? Tonight. The address at the Urinka Stadium. I have Gaima Porsek Ta Solana Desari. Past will be there.
The ritual of food preparation?
You should have led with that.
The woman sat at a terminal and tapped her fingers against the worn metal. An entire report sat before her, ready to send. Records, comments, critiques, and ways things could be better done. The eternal cycle of review. And yet, as she watched the footage of Crash Impact celebrating an impossible victory against an unbeatable foe, she felt kinship and concern. The old woman of the Imperial Navy quirked a lip, slipped the report aside and began drafting up a new message. There were still duties to be performed, and today would be consumed by her visit to Admiralty House. Still, a few words to her niece were all to the wise. She was a good girl, though there was something ungenerous in her style, but training and experience might one day make a fine officer of her, as long as she didn't follow in her mother's footsteps. A commodities broker. Of all the careers for her sister to leave Sevastopol for. Still, there was no denying she'd done well for herself here on Shill, but it all seemed strange. Foreign. Life out of uniform just seemed like an alien world, and her sister was welcome to it. With a little luck, she'd make it to their home in time to watch the tournament. For now, she spared a few minutes for words of advice.
Dearest niece, when one scores an impossible victory, there is an urge to brag, to boast, to write about it in letters and books and have songs commissioned. If you will allow, let this be my advice to you as it was given to me. It is not wrong to celebrate victory, especially hard-fought ones, but to overly celebrate and paint portraits of yourself in the chapel merely sets you up for future defeats. To stake your reputation on winning impossible battles is a tower made of sand. One must be humble and sure in victory. She must know exactly what happened and how, or if not, praise the pantheon above for luck in battle. By that way, every victory, every impossible odds defeated, every terrible foe vanquished shall add to your reputation, but losses shall not shatter it. You merely were outfought or outplayed, or you fell back in good order to prepare defensive works. It may seem strange for me, of all people, to give you this advice, but it is something every aspiring commander needs to hear. You fight well and lead well. Embrace that, and keep it close to your chest. Everything else is merely somewhere you can find improvement. I will be on Shill for about a month. Reach out. We should find some time to meet this evening. It has been too long. With sincerity, your aunt from Sevastopol, Rochelle.
The announcers were in good form, as crowds thronged Urinka Stadium. Tom had to admit, it was a hell of a show, and the special effects alone should have made going worth the effort. As it was a full house, and asking the girls for the favour seemed unfair on no notice. It was their party, after all, and Lexi and the twins had already gone the extra mile by inviting the McClendon Desari kids along, with private seats in their team booth. Tom spared a thought about Levi and Eli, and wondered how they were getting along with the girls. Zachariah and Jen had their kids, and he had his. They were all adults, technically, but Melondi was... well, princess aside, she was one of his, and the whole parent keeping casual watch from the kitchen never went out of style. It was a shame there being something to see after dinner, but Zenshiki hadn't offered to gut Eli and feast on his ligaments like spaghetti until after they'd left. At least she likes pasta. Levi was easy to like, and while they hadn't spoken very often, he had a sense of his father about him. Tom liked Zachariah, and if Levi was growing up like his father, that was no bad thing. Married to a human and Shilvanti wife, both of whom seemed like good, supportive women, Levi had the best of both worlds. He felt a pang of guilt, then, remembering how long he'd been widowed, and wondering what his wife would have made of Miv, Leia, and Lani. She would have approved, he thought. She'd had an open mind, and they would have gotten on. It hurt, but it was jealousy, and he knew it. Levi had Melody and Riala. The passage of time had swept the poison of hurt from his life, but how long had he spent alone, consumed with pain and anger after his world came crashing down? His life gone. The loss of his love burned with a bright flame. It had punished and consumed those years, and yet here he was, getting married to a third Shilvanti wife. Love uses us. It abuses us, and yet we must have it. It misuses us and rules us, yet we always come back for more. Tom shook his head. Revealing the answer had taken Miver showing up in his life. Because life was a gift, sweet as a ripe peach, and precious as a rare gem. He had spent too many years letting his pain squander that treasure. If Levi McClendon never knew that pain, then the universe was a better place. As for Eli... Tom tried to find some redeeming value for the kid, and came up short. It wasn't just that Zack and Jennifer's youngest son was difficult to like. There were people in life who were givers, and others who were takers. Eli was on the far side of the spectrum, and only a family as tight as Zachariah's could have stood the strain. Eli had even managed to set Burdin's teeth on edge, though he wasn't saying why. Burdin seemed to be an unstoppable force when it came to hospitality, but Tom suspected Eli's narcissism presented an immovable object. The McClendons would leave at the end of the holiday, except for Hannah, apparently, and Burdin was probably just waiting out the storm. There was only so much damage the kid could do, but he made a hell of a dent in the girl's impression of humanity. Maybe Levi would balance things out, but if every good deed gained you a foot and every oops cost you a mile, Eli McClendon should be a light year away. Maybe the kid had redeeming qualities if you knew him long enough. Given the aggravation Eli had caused the girls, Tom was just as happy he wouldn't have time to find out. He liked Zack and Jen, and Burdin was probably right to let it go. Anyway, that was food for thought some other day. It was nearly game time. Tom had been looking forward to this since the day before. Even televised, watching an event at the Orinka complex was like comparing the Colosseum to the Husia Dome. It was the same idea, but taken to a new level of spectacle. Orinka wasn't just a stadium. It was a vast metropolis of theatres, sports courts, conference halls, and more, covered by the same kind of vast freestanding videodome that housed the Assembly of Nobles. Roman emperors had flooded the Colosseum to fight actual naval battles, but the vast holographic displays could turn the stadium into the depths of space itself. As bread and circuses went, it was fucking impressive, but just now, it wasn't the main thing on his mind. Over the last few days, Solani had been... better. That was a relief, given the wedding was the day after tomorrow, but that also wasn't the problem. She left no doubts about looking forward to the wedding. It was her prosthetics that had been bothering her. Her cloned replacements were still 2 weeks away, and while the force growth technology was miraculous, it clearly couldn't go fast enough. She wouldn't say why the prosthetics bothered her, and she'd been telling him it wouldn't matter soon. Since that was the truth, it didn't seem worth digging, but Tom had to wonder how she would have dealt with the alternative. If she'd just been a regular Marine, she would have gotten the government standard replacements. On Earth, those would have been a miracle by pre-Shovanti standards, but for Lani... Tom had to wonder if it was because she was a commando, used to being in top physical condition, or was it wanting to be at her best before their honeymoon? Was it both, neither, or something else entirely? All he knew with certainty was that she'd been skittish about anything that brought attention to the prosthetics. Spending real time together over the last few days seemed to help, but watching the game yesterday had truly brought her out of her shell. For the few hours sitting around on the couch, watching the games unfold, Solani had been so much more at ease, and Tom took it as a good sign. But for now? Miv and Leia had made themselves scarce. It wasn't subtle, but being caring didn't have to be. It was an adjustment, but he was part of a quartet now. Giving Solani her time and space was also showing love, just as much as Lani's deference to Leia. The holiday would end, and Leia would go back to work. Lani would have her operation and a few days of physiotherapy. Then it would be back to the bunker. None of it was forever, but whilst Lani would be close, she'd be trapped on the other side of a camera. As deployments went, that had its own flavour of suck, but that time didn't exist yet. They could all pretend a while longer. For now, all 7 feet and 5 inches of his fiancée, Solani Tonis, was snuggled into him with a small mountain of snacks to watch the big game. Imperial Death's Head that she was, the big game was VR fleet boarding actions in Galaxy Conquest Marine, where she cheered on the winners and laughed at the mistakes. Still, to give the players their due, they were polished even by her standards. The gamers were pros, and even if no one actually died, they were playing to win. After the first rounds, she'd conceded that this year's bunch weren't just so much meat mist. Tom had to remind himself it wasn't real. It helped that the battles weren't set in the tree lines along Indiana cornfields, but the realism was flawless. Fought in the depth of space, in corridors with ships, or on lovingly recreated planetary surfaces, a virtual Imperial Marine looked just like the real thing. Solani was leaning into the crook of his arm, a luxury she'd never have with a Shovanti guy given the size difference. Tom looked down at his death's-head girlfriend, currently decked out in a sweatshirt and short shorts that revealed interesting curves, and tried not to imagine her in those cornfields. Before Miv and Leia, he knew he probably couldn't have done it. Many's the time I've been mistaken, and many times confused. Yes, and I've often felt forsaken, and certainly misused. Oh, but I'm all right. Paul Simon crooning through his mind was interrupted as Solani bolted upright. The commercials were over, and she unmuted the sound. The trio of announcers had been silently going on about whatever, and pointing to stats on the screen. Apparently, shows between the games were also a thing for Shovanti. And that's a solid win for this year's Freestyle Gamer Rant, the Shovanti woman crowed with enthusiasm.
That's right, Karay. Broadsides have swept the match. Just look at that form.
The night crew woman nodded, just as taken with the performance.
That's fantastic volume and an outstanding use of profanity. I haven't seen anything like it since Admin Delete's famous "shove that game controller up your ass" montage. An inspiring display for an outstanding tournament this year.
Just look at that infuriated teeth grind. Emick, the Yahtzee woman, turned to wave at the scoreboard. Centaur or not, it provided a nice profile to the top half of her anatomy, and Tom felt Lani's elbow nudge him lightly in the ribs. That was the most enraged pressure I've seen this side of an Adixie. Tom snapped the remote and hit mute. You have got to be kidding me. Hey, they were just about to go over the dental scores. Solani didn't grab the controller out of his hand, but her hand snaked out in her own version of Couch Control Olympics. Tom performed an under-the-leg remote tuck before taking her hand in his. I just don't believe what I'm seeing. I mean, what's the point of this? It gives personal wins for style, Even if you lose your team match, individual players have a shot at standing out, and there's some fantastic swag, Solani said, taking on the role of educational sports jock / stormtrooper. Like yesterday when they had the game gymnastics floor routine? Well, sure. I mean, it should be an athletic sport. You saw that girl win with a reverse full circle foot stomp, with a winding arm flail and a ricochet controller throw? Lani looked at him as if he should appreciate the full depth of the achievement, and Tom had the sudden realization he was marrying an esports geek. Come on, what about the height of that vertical bounce? Okay, I'll give you that one. He had to admit it was impressive. So, what's left before the games start? They'll announce the prizes and win rankings before the Cliffsinger Serenade. Solani ticked them off her fingers one at a time. It's down to 3 matches, so they'll make the time stretch out, but each match will appear over the entire stadium dome. Cliffsingers? Isn't that kind of different? It's a halftime show, and this year they've got the Monsters of Opera singing 5-Hit Laser Combo. Solani's chest heaved in a sigh, which did interesting things to her anatomy. I love the classics. It was a strange new world, but as Solani leaned back into him, Tom decided he wanted to keep it that way. Crash Impact looked out over her squadron and knew it was good. There was time for the pre-game planning, but she knew several of the women on her team. She also had 6 members of the pro team Deadly Reflex, and Laser Pump was acting as her second-in-command, while Strike Doctor, a regular she played with, managed the point allocations. Now, if... This tea tastes like something died in it, Laser Pump muttered. It's not tea. It's a vessel to have steamed kvass. Real drink for real women. It's better with jar made of plover and Prevla blood, yes? Some things you'll have a hard time getting on chill. Oh, fuck me, I think I'm gonna be sick. She missed her homeland, but Mother had to move them to Shill. Pfah. You are soft, local girl, which is punishment enough. Still, they of us. She gestured at the other teams on the board. A crowd of losers, all of them. We will crush and bury them. You shouldn't be so overconfident. Coming from a Deadly Reflex player, the comment was pathetic. Hard to believe their team passed out players who were either too conservative or too reckless for their team. Silly bitches. I've watched the replays. Ha! She snorted. We will destroy these children like ice pick to brain pan. I don't fucking believe you, Laserbump muttered. I have my team standing to maintain, but you got the slot as commander, so don't go tits up on us. Grinch your piss. Sheer swept the first round, losing only a single destroyer and a light cruiser to place second in the ranks. The team taking first had used a pathetic ruse, rather than skill. At least for this round, they were moved up to Tier 9 Consortium ships. Far better, though there were still shortcomings. Ones she knew how to exploit. Shorvanti ships were built like scalpels. Consortium ships were built like sledgehammers, and she knew which she liked. I'd feel better if we'd gotten a full trio of those Selvira-class cruisers, Strike Doctor muttered. Look, you're lucky we got what we did, you insufferable cunt! And Selviras? Don't talk to me about those spinal-mounted abortions, just fucking don't! I am at the end of my rope with hearing about you two whining over those things. A rope I will fucking hang you with if you don't shut the fuck up! Alright? It was a shame. Laserpump had only come third in the freestyle gamer rant, but at least her team was bonding. But humble in victory? Pah! She respected her aunt, but that was a recipe for the weak. Whoever we get are just breathing buckets of chum. Whole board is like Parade of Pitfall. She cast a dismissive wave at the other 5 teams up on the scoreboard. We will paint the stars with their blood, and turn their ships to dust. The first battle was over, and goddamn, Tom had to admit the team had fucked the other side hard. Modern warships didn't carry spinal mounts, but apparently they'd been in vogue a century ago. Yet another complication seemed to be the whole slower-than-light sensor issue, though that was still a fact of life. For Tier 9 ships, Shovanti and Consortium weapons had essentially equal range, and the Consortium ships had somehow managed to hold their distance. As the Shovanti tried to close, the Consortium team slammed into reverse thrust, falling the shield targeting. It had looked like a risky move, but the ranged volleys of Shovanti laser fire were wildly off, while the Consortium team ravaged the oncoming team with mass fire from their spinal mounts. Well, I'll be damned. The Picard Maneuver. The Consortium commander then obliterated a third of the Shovanti ships in the opening minutes, before mauling them in detail. In the end, she'd only spared the Shovanti command ship, which was pounded nearly to scrap before sending in the boarding teams. As a win went, even the announcers winced at the display of pure spite. Still, today's show has started at noon and matches will be over early. No one would dare competing with tonight's address for the day arc. It wasn't just an Imperial address, it was also the holiday, and Miv and Leia meant to be back in plenty of time to watch. So, can you tell me something? I want to ask and... well, can I ask without getting you mad? If you have to ask that, is it worth asking? Tom sighed at the look in her face. From a mountain of marine, it was so incongruous he almost smiled, but whatever it was, he knew she didn't intend to hurt him. I promise, whatever it is. Oh, thank the goddess. It's just... well, I wanted to ask before the wedding. You know I want to wait until the prosthetics are gone, but, you let me sleep with you last night. Yeah? Tom smiled gently at that. It had been just that, sleeping together, but personal space was less of a thing for the Shovanti, who put a lot of store by bodily contact. The cuddle pool was a big deal, and just sleeping together had meant a lot to her. It's about when we woke up this morning. You were... hard. Yeah? Uncertain where this was going, Tom made the word as inoffensive as possible. It's just that, before, when there was a camera placed in your bedroom, and I'm sorry, but it was there, it's just that everybody noticed. That happens a lot. Tom's brain shot past camera in the bedroom, because that had been a discussion where Miv had had her say. It was a done conversation and a dead issue. His mind zoomed in on everybody noticed, but while he felt himself turning red, he looked at Solani's face. She was mortified, but she wanted to know. Fine. So this was one of those questions of personal intimacy you got between you couples, and her interactions with men had been sparse. Sure, this was fine. That's just morning wood. It's normal and... Oh, you mean Shovanti guys don't... Tom pursed his lips. Not every euphemism translated, and clearly that one missed its mark going from English to Vatica. It's something that happens with human guys. So that's normal? Solani was starting to turn bright blue. It's just, all the girls in the bunker wanted me to ask. Shovanti might have low personal boundaries, but he was pretty sure the shock in his face was showing, loud and clear as Lani reined herself in. Sorry, but when it happens, do I need to... do anything? Tom checked his mortification at the door, and thought about all the things he and Miv had done in the mornings. Dead conversation, he reminded himself, then took one more look at the embarrassed, hopeful face of his bride-to-be, who was actually blushing. Fine. A practical explanation, then. The halftime show had wrapped up, and the crowd in Orinka Stadium were doing the wave, which for Shovanti just made sense. Okay, so morning wood. Due to different time zones with the rotation of the Earth, it's always morning somewhere. Imagine a massive crowd wave of rising dicks constantly circling the planet. Lani buried her head in his chest and started to shudder. It took him a moment to realize she was strangling back laughter. It was kind of nice leaving a death's head speechless, and here in the hotel they weren't on candid camera. If the girls in the bunker wanted to know, then she could do the explaining. She was still wiping away tears when she took the show off mute. It was time for the next battle. Hannah McClendon didn't mutter. She wanted to mutter, because being called into work on the second day kind of sucked. She'd had everything set to join Levi and the girls to go to the big game, which was all part of the plan. Watch the princess watching the game? If anywhere was a good place to watch her let her hair down, that had to be it, right? Wrong. Still, Alrada was her boss, and Jalissa had called her in to meet with him. It was an opportunity, and sure, going out to the game had sounded like fun, but the real stakes were tonight. Princess My Name is Melondi would be on the spot. The problem there was getting close. She'd pulled the I have to be with my family card, and the academy girls had closed ranks, especially her BFF, Desi. Which was pretty shri, actually. It would have been nice to have had a sister instead of Eli, but she'd been the only girl in a boy's world. The name's McClendon. Hannah McClendon. Super spy, she whispered, as she said in the waiting room. Okay, it was a little childish, but spy in training or not, that would never cease to be epic. Well, the shoe was on the other foot now. Eli could shove it where the sun didn't shine and make way for Hannah McClendon. Data analyst. Right, not as cool, but what she did would have to stay in the privacy of her own thoughts from now on. Whatever it was that she was actually supposed to be doing. Spying on an imperial princess didn't seem like starting off with the soft pitches. She was a woman, in a woman's world now. The people she worked for would expect results. They'd expect her to... Alrada's door cracked open and Jalissa waved her inside. Unusually, the Shilvanti woman was dressed like one of the Tide Pool's waitstaff. She wandered in and took her cue from Jalissa, noting the unhappy look on Alrada's face. Haram, the head waiter and quartermaster for the Tide Pool, looked like he was sucking lemons, but he usually looked that way when not out in the restaurant, at least so far as she'd seen him. Past said he took the work seriously. He didn't want anyone to be less than prepared. Thank you for coming on short notice. Alrada settled back in his seat and waved her and Jalissa to the empty chairs. Jalissa tells me you are following a promising lead. That's good work, but I've been having some stern conversations with Haram and Jalissa here. She told us you have some proficiency with a pistol. I do. It's the old-fashioned slug-throwing kind, but yes. She'd been trading notes with Jalissa after the interview, but firing old-fashioned guns was just something everyone in the country knew how to do. It wasn't like using lasers, and she'd been a little embarrassed, no matter how intrigued Jalissa seemed with it all. You are, in fact, going into the field in a very real sense, and several parties have taken a keen interest in this evening. We have had some indications that things are getting a bit... indeterminate. Alrada steepled his fingers. As loath as I am to do it, both Haram and Jalissa have reminded me that it is policy not to let an agent go into the field unarmed. I admit I have some reservations. Because I'm a human? Or because I'm new? Hannah wondered. There was a real swelling of relief, despite the curiosity. She wasn't on Earth anymore, and damn, but it was nice that his hesitation wasn't because she was a girl. You're new and untested, Alrada continued after studying her face, but it's a sensible policy, and you'll have Jalissa working as your backup. We don't expect trouble, but you are one of us now. I expect discretion. Okay, partly because I'm a human, Hannah nodded. I understand, sir. I'll take my cues from Jalissa, sir. No going off script, but how am I getting close? I wasn't invited along with the princess. Alrada pressed a folder toward Jalissa. Entry passes, courtesy of Duchess d'Alan. She's one of our patrons, and the box kept by the Assembly is on the same level as the Imperial Suites. These will get you on the floor, and after the job, you and the rest of Jalissa's team will mix in with the Duchess's personal serving staff. They're all provided by us. That made sense of Jalissa's outfit, and her glance must have given her away. Haram will get you outfitted, and makeup will be disguising you as a Helcom. That's why we needed you now. Arada looked at the other man laconically. Hiram only grunted. That's more clothing than a Hooter's outfit, but not by much, sir. How would I had a pistol? Hannah remembered to cock her head to one side. Jalissa was in culottes and a tank top, overlaid with something that looked like a cross between suspenders and shibari straps. Demure it was not. A pistol would be picked up by security, and your objective is to blend in. Haram groused. Jalissa, demonstrate. Hannah looked at Jalissa, who laid 2 fingers on the purple doodad over her left breast. One was set into the rope on either side of her chest, giving the outfit a weirdly bondage meets military look for a given value of catering. Jalissa tugged one of the knobs sharply, and it fell out like a pulled thread. She gave it a sharp toss with her hand, and it snapped into place. It was that purple metal the Shovanti loved, but something about the colour looked off. Memory metal. These have a high vanadium and molybdenum content for tensile strength and resistance to wear. Held up in Jalissa's hand, it looked pretty handy as a dagger. I can tug a garrote from my collar too, but it's a bitch to thread back without causing a bulge. Congratulations, Miss McClendon. Alrada peered over the bridge of his fingertips. You are now, as we say, living in twilight. Do you have any questions? Just one. Why did I have to swipe my brother's omnipad?